Hi. I read The Fellowship of the Ring. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I am in my 30s, and despite all of the years of reading, specifically reading adult fantasy, I've never read The Fellowship of the Ring. So that's what we're diving into in this video. You're going to see past me, and then after you see past me, you're going to come back to current me to talk about my final feelings of The Fellowship of the Ring. There were ups, there were downs. You are about to find out what the ratio of those ups and downs were. But this was a time was had. It is the 30th of December, 2024. And wow, what a way to round out my year. But without any further ado, oh, wait, there is some more ado. There is a little bit more ado. First of all, as I said, this is my first time reading it. And I'm pretty sure I've watched like most of The Fellowship of the Ring, but I'm not attached to the movies. I'm not really into movies to begin with, like in general. So yeah, I definitely don't give a shit about the actual Lord of the Ring movies. I didn't grow up reading this because once again, this is my first time reading it. I understand this might be your all-time favorite everything ever in the world of the history of forever and ever, and that's great. That's wonderful. It's just moving forward, know that the same isn't true for me. Okay, so all of my thoughts and opinions are going to be very superficial because this is my first time interacting with this content. Also, yeah, I just feel like I did my best. I did my best to convey what was happening and my thoughts as to what was happening. I didn't script any of this, so please allow me just this much of grace this time, just a little bit, because I feel like my thoughts, looking back over the footage, my thoughts were kind of all over the place. So thank you, and I will see you at the end of this video so we can talk about my final thoughts on The Fellowship of the Ring. See you in a little bit. Okay, hey, sorry for the wild lighting going on right now. I am on a... This is not a real bookmark. That's why it instantly fell out. I am on page 154 of The Fellowship of the Ring, which is the first book in The Lord of the Rings. By Mr. What are we gonna say his name is? Yes, I could easily Google what JRR stands for, but this was more fun. What Mr. Jerome Rashad Tolkien has written as the first installment to the Lord of the Rings series. Is it a series or a trilogy? Because I know he also wrote the Silmarillion. Is that part of the series or is that something completely separate? Anyways, I have thoughts, I have feelings. Okay. My initial thoughts on this. So the book opens up. And by the way, this is the omnibus edition. That's why it looks so crazy. This is all three books bound into one. And this was actually gifted to me by my dear friend Lance. So Lance, wherever you are out there, if you're watching this, thank you. I'm finally making my way through it. I can't promise I'm going to read the whole thing because if I don't like The Fellowship of the Ring, I'm leaving it right there. Okay, so my initial thoughts. This book opens up with the most detailed, in-depth, convoluted history / explanation / description of who the hobbits are as people, right? And it obviously... Okay, let me just stop there. My issue with that is this book is assuming that I already care about the hobbits, and I don't. But I also do want to say, I think that's both a good and a bad thing. I can 100% see if The Lord of the Rings was one of the first fantasy series you read and you loved it and then you went through again and reread it, I can totally see how you would basically cream your pants rereading The Fellowship of the Ring, because it opens up with this crazy in-depth history about all of the... Baby, when I tell you, you get the entire family tree of multiple side characters and multiple people. You get the pedigree of damn near every single hobbit that is ever mentioned ever, right? At one point it's talking about how the hobbits have a way of like rolling up basically weed. It sounds like they're just smoking marijuana, but like you get like a whole history about how they were the first ones to like do it in this special way or something. Mind you, during all of this, nothing is actually happening. You're just getting the world's biggest, most random info dump about the hobbits and where they live, what they like to eat, that they like to sing music, what all their names mean, who they're related to, what they, like I said, what they like to smoke. And then it kind of tries to pretend that it's going to move the plot, because then it starts to mention the things that Bilbo went through in The Hobbit. And I did read The Hobbit, and for the sake of brevity, I am not going to mention that here. But then what's interesting to me is clearly The Hobbit is a prequel to this. Okay, I'm gonna need you to do one or two things. Either I need the callbacks to previous parts in the series to be organically repeated as like a reminder, like, oh, when Bilbo had to turn up on the spiders and like yada yada yada. I'm gonna either need that, or I'm gonna need you to have like an entire separate synopsis in the beginning or the end of this book about what happened in The Hobbit, because literally part of this giant info dump was basically retelling the events of The Hobbit. Why are we here? Why are we here? And maybe that's because The Hobbit was not intended for an adult audience, and so maybe Mr. Tolkien, maybe he assumed that adults just wouldn't read The Hobbit, and so he felt the need to explain the events of The Hobbit. But y'all, we get a whole breakdown as to who Gollum was and how Bilbo met Gollum down in the cave and they had to play a game and, oh, somebody pulls a knife. Like, we get this whole backstory, and it's like, if I already loved this series, I would love all of those small details, and I would love reliving those plot points, but I'm not there yet. I'm just now reading it. So I think it's a good and a bad thing. I just didn't have fun reading it, okay? And so then, once again, I feel like I keep getting bamboozled into thinking that we're gonna move the plot somewhere. You know what? Hold on. How long is The Fellowship of the Ring? Because maybe... Okay, so in this... Oh, wait, nope, never mind. That's the end of Two Towers. Yeah. I was way off. Okay. Let's see. I promise I'm gonna find it. Okay. So yeah, my suspicions are correct. With this edition, The Fellowship of the Ring is only 427 pages. Y'all, I'm already on page 154. The only thing that has happened, okay, is Gandalf diva walks his way into the Shire on Bilbo's 11th birthday, because he's 111 years old. He diva walks into the Shire. Bilbo is like, oh, what ring? I don't know what what ring are you talking about? Homie, I don't know what you're talking. Oh, you mean the ring that's in my pocket right now that I totally put there purposefully and I don't want you to have? Oh, yeah, about that. I actually want to keep the ring, so let's just charge it to the game and let's talk about this a different time. But he ends up giving the ring to Gandalf, and then Gandalf just... I have questions questions about Gandalf's character, but I'm gonna wait until I'm at the end of this book to ask those questions. So either way, Frodo ends up with basically most of Bilbo's belongings, including the ring, right? And so now Frodo is burdened with all of the chaos that comes with this ring because everybody and their mama across the land want this ring. And essentially this ring is like an air tag. It's like a GPS tracker. Like people can just hone in as to where this ring is at all times. And so now the homies, well, not the homies, the ops are out here trying to find the ring and get it off of Frodo. So then Gandalf basically hypes up Frodo. I mean, okay, Gandalf was low-key on some Dumbledore shit, but once again, I am going to hold my judgment of Gandalf until the end of this book. But essentially, Gandalf, in a very covert way, kind of hypes up Frodo to go on this grand adventure to get rid of the ring, whatever about the ring, right? So Frodo and his homies go off into the outer lands outside of the Shire. Okay, I need a drink. I'm sorry, hold on. Don't ask me what kind of beer this is. I still can't read Japanese. Yeah, I've lived in Japan for however long now. It is what it is. Okay. So this is where another issue arises. Here's my thing. Okay. You're in the woods. These weird people are tracking you down and they have already scared the shit out of you. All right. Why would you then respond to this trauma by merpa-derping through the woods?
I love potatoes. I love tomatoes. I am a hobbit. Do you like potatoes? I like tomatoes.
The songs? The songs. Oh my God. Oh my God. And then they meet up with these elves. It's giving me gas. Okay. They meet up with these elves, and these elves are basically like, yeah, Frodo, the ops that are after you, I'm gonna let you know right now, don't fuck with them. And you know what these little dudes do?
I like potatoes. I like tomatoes.
All through the damn woods. No wonder you had to run and hide from them 50 damn times. Y'all this tiny. Y'all this tiny. It's easy for y'all to hide. The only other thing you gotta do is be quiet. Shut the fuck up. Okay. This will be literally my fourth time trying to film this clip. So forgive me if I just seem over it because I kind of am. Okay. I am on page, you think since I've said it 4 times now, I would remember. I'm on page 267, and that's about 60% of the way through the book, according to the audiobook, whatever. And I've been listening to it predominantly on audio, but I just sat down for like half an hour and did some tandem reading. Sorry for the crazy angle and the really harsh light. But I have thoughts, I have feelings. So I have a coworker, and there's kind of like this running joke, I'd say, that she's the busiest person in the world. But the reason it's kind of a joke is because in the grand scheme of things, she'll tell you all these different things that she's working on, that she's doing, and why she was too busy to answer her emails, and why she's never in her office. But then when you sit down and think about the things that she's claiming to do, it adds up to a bunch of nothing. It's just a bunch of nothing. It's like, for you to be the busiest person ever, for you to always be too busy to do anything else, you sure don't get a lot of things done, right? That is kind of how I'm feeling about Lord of the Rings. I feel like I'm reading about so much, but despite the fact that I'm 60% of the way through this book, the only things that have happened, and I'm I promise I did not go into this I did not go into the Lord of the Rings looking to shit on it. That is not what this is. I mean, I also didn't think it would be like a new time or a new all-time favorite, but yeah. So don't feel like I'm just looking for things, because I'm actually kind of upset that I'm not loving it. But okay, the only thing that has happened, or the only things that have happened, and we're 60% way or 60% of the way through the story, is Bilbo has a birthday. He leaves the Shire. Frodo ends up with the ring. Him and his homies go derping through the forest. They end up hiding from these black riders every 5 seconds. They end up at this inn. They meet Strider. Frodo does this thing where like he falls down after he's trying to distract the homies from telling all their business to the people up in the club, and the ring accidentally ends up going on his finger, so he turns invisible, and now the black riders can basically like hone in on his location, because apparently when the ring is like being used or activated or something, then the ops can find you more easily, something like that. So they end up having to flee to Rivendell, mostly because Frodo gets shanked by one of the black riders. They end up finding them out and about, and Frodo gets shanked in the shoulder. And so now he is awoken, and he's in Rivendell. Gandalf is there. Gandalf is like, hey, yo, yeah, I got caught up by the op. And then they snitched on me and sent my ass to jail, and I just got out that bitch. And so now we're being introduced to some of these like elven characters. And how do I put this? The stuff that we're learning from Strider, aka Aragorn, and Boromir, and Aragorn Daddy, whatever the hell his name is, I don't forgot. I can appreciate how big brain Tolkien is, or was. And I totally can appreciate that he could clearly see all of this stuff in his head, and he wants the reader to see it too. It's just, I don't know if I'm at a place where I care about it just yet. I don't know if I'm at a place where any of this matters to me. Other than that brief interaction that the hobbits had earlier in the book with the elves, like out in the forest, we haven't had enough meaningful interactions with the elves for me to care about this info dump of like these other elven communities in the north and in the south, and then we literally just met Boromir, and now he's telling us everything about how, well, we do it in the middle, we don't believe that. I just feel like I'm reading so much, but like that is it, y'all. That's all that's happened currently on page 266, 267. They're talking about how Isildur's Bane, which is the ring, has been found, and the ring is supposed to repair this broken knife, this broken shank from way back in the day. And Boromir is basically like, I don't really believe that the ring that Frodo has is Isildur's Bane. And just because he's short doesn't mean he's the halfling in like this prophecy, poem, song. I don't know. But like, once again, Frodo just recently woke up. I think like a few days at this point maybe has passed, but like, this is it. That's all that's happened in the book so far. What do you mean I've read 267 pages and that's all that's happened? I don't. The songs are driving me absolutely bonkers. I don't know how, but it's getting worse. There was one song, yeah, y'all, please. Okay, this edition is like almost falling apart. But please, do you see that? This is where the song starts, baby. This is where the fucking song starts. Okay. I just turned the page. If you don't believe me, this is really hard to do. But like, what do you mean? What do you mean? And I felt so bad for the damn audiobook narrator because he was running out of breath. He kept going. I can't be bothered. 60-second update, if that. I didn't get much further in Lord of the Rings, but y'all, when I tell you every single time I try to listen to the audiobook or read it, it makes me so sleepy. I don't know what it is. Yesterday, I was driving, listening to the audiobook, and I almost thought, do I need to pull over and take a nap? But then when I stopped listening to it because I needed to like really focus on the directions. You know how you can't see the directions if something is too loud? I don't know how that works. But the moment I turned it off, I was fine. And then the same thing happened last night. I wasn't sleepy. And then the moment I got like 5 pages into my little reading sesh, girl, I was on the verge of being knocked out. I was 10 seconds from just conking, you know? So I kind of don't want to read it in the middle of the day because then it's just going to make me sleepy. But I don't know if it doesn't seem to be because it's dry. I mean, nothing is happening, but it's not that boring. I don't know, y'all. Hey, welcome back. So as of a couple hours ago, well, no, more like 3 hours ago at this point, I finished The Fellowship of the Ring by Jerome Rashad. Is that what we said his name is? Tolkien. And here are my final thoughts. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I'm giving it a 3, girl. I'm giving it a 3. And to be honest, it kind of feels like a generous 3. So, how do I feel about this? Okay, this is the overall vibe, the overall experience I had with The Lord of the Rings. It's one thing to have a brilliant mind and to be able to come up with and compose and imagine a beautifully intricate, wonderful story, to be able to visualize those character dynamics and the geography of the world and the history and knowing what you want the overall feeling of your story to be. That's one thing, but it's another thing to be a storyteller. The two things should not be conflated because they're two different things. It's really amazing if someone who is an awesome storyteller can also be the one who comes up with the amazing stories. But every writer is not one and the same, right? I feel like J.R.R. Tolkien has an amazing mind and had a wonderfully large and expansive imagination. But when it came to conveying the story to the audience, I felt like that was not his strong point. He didn't really seem to get his footing until the 300-page mark. And what do you mean the story doesn't really pick up and nothing with any sort of like stakes really happens until the 300-page mark, and there's only 427 pages in the book, you know, as far as like my edition or whatever. But like the ratio is the same. The ratio is the same across formats. Like it started to pick up whenever they entered the mines. Before then, nothing of any stakes was truly happening. How can it take 300 pages for Frodo to get the ring, for them to run through the woods, for them to meet Strider in the inn, and then end up in Rivendell and talk to these elves about how dangerous the ring is? In what way does it take 300 pages to convey those plot points? And you know, I would be a little more forgiving because I am a fan of writers like Robin Hobb, right? there is nothing that Robin Hobb has written that is super duper plot heavy, at least from what I've read, okay? She is definitely a master of character work. But with that being said, character work can help carry a story. But for me, the first glimpse I got into any character's actual personality was when we met Boromir. And he was basically interrogating everybody about the ring itself and about Frodo. Like, okay, who is this little dude? Why do y'all think this little dude is the center of everything? Okay, that ring could have came from everywhere. How do we know it's Isildur's Bane? Okay, you claim that this ring is the ring of all the rings to do the rings of the rings. Why don't we just use the ring to take out the ops? Why are we trying to destroy it? We can literally use the ring to solve all the problems that we had. Like, Boromir was showing his personality and being slightly antagonistic and even kind of bullheaded. And that was the first time, at least for me, that I felt any sort of distinguishing characteristics from a character. Because when it comes to the hobbits, their personalities are all kind of interchangeable. They're agreeable, they're sleepy, and they're hungry, and they've lived a life of comfort. Like, there's really nothing that truly separates them from one another. Same thing with the elves. The elves are just like info dumpy robots, to be honest. And then from there, we meet up with the homely Gimli. Is that how you say his name? The dwarf. I loved the moment where they end up in Legolas' cousin in them neighborhood when they meet up with like the other elves or whatever. And the elves at like the entrance, they're like, okay, I see you have a dwarf. I don't like that. You gonna have to be blindfolded if you gonna come in here. And then Gimli was like, I don't even know y'all like that. I ain't got no beef with y'all. I've never been on this side of the hood before. I don't know what kind of beef you had back in, the ancient homie days, but it ain't got nothing to do with me. I ain't finna be blindfolded for nobody. And then the elves at the entrance are like, okay, you can either be blindfolded or you can turn your ass around and take your chances with the stealth archers that we got hiding in the woods along the path on the way back. And so then there's this great moment, which I just wish we had more moments like this that show their dynamic. Basically, all of the homies band together and they agree to be blindfolded along with Gimli as they enter this like elven community because they want to stand in solidarity with him. They don't want the homie to be the only one looking crazy as they walk through this community. I wanted more moments like that, but I felt like I was robbed of that because we were too busy getting these gigantic info dumps that didn't really change the directory of the story. We knew from the very first paragraph where we were learning about Bilbo's relationship with the ring and like his interactions with Gollum in the story of the Hobbit at the beginning of this book. We knew that the ring wasn't anything good. And then even the interaction between Gandalf and Bilbo, we knew the ring wasn't good. So why did we have to, I saw somewhere on the internet, apparently the interaction at Rivendell where they're trying to explain how dangerous the ring was, apparently that was 15,000 words. You don't need to give me 15,000 words of why it's bad if I already know it's bad. Like, I don't really understand. I just felt like I was robbed out of so much magic that I could have felt for this. But yeah, I'm still giving it a 3 because once again, the parts of Tolkien's like imagination that did come across, I could definitely appreciate and I enjoyed. And once again, once the plot picked up, I was enjoying myself and I enjoyed the story. I loved what happened with Boromir when Boromir was trying to snatch Frodo's chain. I loved that because it's showing character dynamic. It's showing, I don't want to say, gray morality or anything, but because I feel like it was more of like the ring's influence over Boromir than Boromir's character specifically. But still, I loved those moments, but I ain't getting none of that till we was 300 pages in. And there's only 427 pages to begin with. So honestly, they left the mines by page 350. So I kind of got less than 100 pages of the stuff I really wanted to read about. And can we talk about Gimli like risen up that elf lady asking for some of her hair? I wanted more moments like that, but I just felt robbed continuing the series anytime soon. No, no. I mean, this was an okay first date. I wasn't super impressed, but I wasn't super offended. Like, he paid for my dinner and he did compliment me and he actually noticed things about me. And he wasn't just talking to talk, he was actually responding to things I was saying. And he seems really interesting. I just don't know if I feel that spark. Anyways, that's all from me. I'm so happy that I read The Fellowship of the Ring. I might go ahead and watch the movie at some point during this New Year's holiday. I have a couple of days off of work. Have you read The Fellowship of the Ring? Is The Lord of the Rings your favorite series? If you have read anything in the Lord of the Rings universe, is it your favorite of all time? What installment is your favorite? Do you have beef with Mr. Jerome Rashid Tolkien? Or are you cool with him? Is he your all-time favorite? What is your relationship with this series? I would like to know. Let's discuss in the comments. Thank you so much for being here and supporting me. And with that, I will catch y'all in the next one. Bye. Bye. I did it. Oh my God. Ah!